Thank you, Bob. Tonight, the story of Byron Carlson. Stand by then for your first look.
My name is Byron Leslie Carlson. I was born April 2nd, 1919. And this is my autobiography. I've been so lucky, plain lucky. My family are second generation Swedes. I'm the third generation Swedes. But my grandparents came from Sweden, both families did. One from the province of Skåne. And as I recall, my dad said his family was from Frederick Shipping. F-R-E-D-E-R-I-K-S-K-O-P-I-N-G. Frederick Shipping is the way they pronounced it. My mother was from another province way on the west side where Gothenburg is, or they call it Göteborg. They landed in the port of Baltimore about 1875. After leaving the Baltimore area, moved to Indiana for a short time. We still have some family in Indiana, but I've lost track of them. And then they moved on out to Kansas and settled in the tiny little town of Oldsburg, which was really called Olisburg. They contracted that name to Oldsburg. My father and mother were born in Oldsburg, and they were just kids and knew one another. They went through the school there. And my father's father, my grandfather, died when he was quite young, 14 or 15, and his brother Guy was about a year older. And they tried to run this farm together, about 240 acres. And they worked hard, of course, but they were just kids. They didn't know what the heck they were doing, really, as farmers go. In any case, they decided that they'd try something else. They only made $400 a piece that first year, and so they both decided, well, we got to do something else. So they sold the farm. My father went down to this little burg, this tiny little town of Oldsburg, and walked into the bank, the Oldsburg State Bank, and said, "You got a job?" Said, "No, we don't have a job right now, but you can sweep the floors and clean things up around here if you like." So he did that for a while, and then they made him a teller. And he worked as a teller, then he became a cashier. Then he got an offer from another bank in Randolph, Kansas, not too terribly far away, where he worked again as a cashier. Then he made the move to the big city, Topeka, which was 60,000 when I lived there, probably 40 when he moved there. And he worked in the Merchants National Bank, worked his way up to executive vice president, number 2 spot in the bank, which is pretty good for a kid who didn't have a lot of education. He just had business school education in Grand Island Business College in Grand Island, Nebraska. He went up there just for 2 years. So that's as much of an education as he had. I remember he was so stalwart and so honest. My mother was a wonderful woman. She had 4 children, my brother Lee and myself, but she had 2 children who died shortly after birth. I don't know why, but all of us were 10 pounds, at least. So she probably had a terrible time delivering us, but 2 children died. She was so young and pretty. She looked like Glenn Close, the actress, when she was young. A very thoughtful person. I loved her. My relationship with my parents couldn't have been better. Just couldn't have been better. Because I think they gave my brother Lee and me a loose leash. They didn't try to be too strict, but just strict enough. I have one brother who was a wonderful guy. I didn't think he was wonderful when we were growing up, but he turned out to be wonderful when we became mature. All we had was a great, wonderful old dog that we called her Trixie, a huge collie. And in the summertime, we'd always shave all the hair off of her except her mane. She looked like a lion, you know, with the short hair on the back and a big mane. Lee was 5 years older than I was, so that we weren't real close, except he was my nemesis as a little kid. You know, he could push me around, anything. He had big arms and hands, and different from my build. But he was a wonderful guy. He died about 2 or 3 years ago. And all my sons just loved their Uncle Lee. Wes did a marvelous sketch of Lee, which I love it. It's on my wall down in my little office there.